LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the May 22nd edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I've picked out 28 of the weekend's most newsworthy clips for what should be a really informative, educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the big five corporate outlets on their Sunday morning shows, the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. You can see the three main topics I'm covering listed down in the video description, and if you're watching the recorded version of this show, you should see time indexes down there that will let you skip between the topics, go back to the beginning if you want to watch it again, I guess. I've also put a link down in the video description to this clip list I'm using of the 28 clips for the show. The notes are sometimes kind of hard to read, but you should at least be able to figure out the topic and the network and who's speaking in the clip pretty much from looking at my kind of strange notes here, if you're interested in that. Like I said, the three main topics listed down there for the recorded version of the show are the Republican side of the 2016 presidential race, the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential race, and then a little corporate media comparison on the coverage of EgyptAir and the possibility of terrorism, comparing the Fox News like terrorism hyperbole to the three of the four other networks that actually covered it. But before I get to that, I want to start with the presidential race. There's very little on the Republican side, no Donald Trump clips this week. I have 9 Hillary Clinton interview clips from her one interview on Meet the Press, and then 7 Bernie Sanders clips from the few interviews he did. I'm going to start with the Republican side of the race, and I want to start with the few clips I have on the Republican side where Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee, consolidating his hold on the Republican Party this week, including with the endorsement of the NRA that Colin Jost satirized at the beginning of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live over in this clip.
NRA on Friday officially endorsed Donald Trump, I assume because they didn't do a background check. If they had, they would have seen that when President Obama called for gun control in the wake of the Newtown shooting, Donald Trump tweeted, "President Obama spoke for me and every American in his remarks in #Newtown." He wrote #Newtown, but forgot to write #might have to completely change my views if I end up being a Republican. Ultimately, though, it does make sense that the NRA would endorse Trump because Trump himself is kind of like a gun. We think he's going to make us feel safe and strong, but he might end up accidentally killing us.
During a speech.
Now, what's kind of amusing about that clip, I mean, some of the jokes were a little amusing there, but the problem with trying to satirize or parody Donald Trump is a lot of the things he does are actually funnier than the satire, like you see there from Colin Jost on Saturday Night Live last night, and that was the finale of Saturday Night Live. We won't be seeing Saturday Night Live till in the fall, I guess, although Bill Maher in Real Time should be back next week, and I don't know what their schedule is going to be. But to prove my point about Donald Trump being more of a joke himself sometimes than Saturday Night Live can parody, I want to show a clip from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where George Stephanopoulos played a clip of something Donald Trump said about the NRA this morning on Fox and Friends, and tried to get Representative Marsha Blackburn, a Republican in Congress, to explain the contradiction in the Donald Trump statement that got everybody laughing over on ABC in this clip.
You brought up the issue of guns in schools because Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump this weekend have been debating.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, excuse me. That, of course, is not ABC. As you saw, that was a mistake. Marsha Blackburn was part of the panel over on CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper, who played the contradiction of Donald Trump on Fox and Friends this morning over here.
You brought up the issue of guns in schools because Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump this weekend have been debating back and forth on that. And a few hours ago, Donald Trump called into Fox and Friends and tried to clear up the issue of where exactly he stands on the issue of guns in schools. Take a listen.
I don't want to have guns in classrooms, although in some cases teachers should have guns in classrooms, frankly.
Okay, Congressman, you're going to have to help me with this. I don't want to have guns in classrooms, though in some cases teachers should have guns in classrooms, frankly. What does that mean? Yeah.
Let me tell you where I think this is going. Many times you will have teachers and principals say they would like for the police officer or some designee in the school to be able to have a firearm, someone who has a carry permit, someone who can respond if there is an unfortunate occurrence. So I hear that from teachers, and Donald Trump has been good about listening to what people want to see, and I think that's what he's responding to, is that you do have educators who would like the ability to be able to protect their school and their children in case they're called upon to do that.
Bill, Bernie Sanders has been painting himself this election season.
So, like I said, sorry for that little delay there. I was reading your comments, the live viewer comments along the way, but I wanted to show that Donald Trump there is sometimes a bigger joke than the jokes they can make about him on Saturday Night Live. But before you start laughing too much at the big joke Donald Trump, I have to show this next clip, which is from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where they showed their latest poll. I believe this is the ABC Washington Post poll, if I have the right poll, and it shows you Donald Trump is no laughing matter, as I will discuss after you watch that clip here.
Post promises more surprises to come. Out just this morning, it shows a tight battle between two of the most unlike candidates ever. The top line, Donald Trump has edged ahead of Hillary Clinton, drawing 46% of registered voters to her 44%. Now, that lead is inside the margin of error, so technically a dead heat. But take a look at these trend lines. From September of last year, Clinton has always been out front. By March, a 9-point lead. Now that's gone. You might say the poll shows a race to the bottom. Take a look at this. 60% of Americans have an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump, 53% for Hillary Clinton. The first time in the history of our polling, the majority of Americans hold a poor opinion of both candidates. Trump's pulled ahead by bringing Republicans home. 85% now support him, and almost half now say he holds the core values of the party. Now, that's not great, but a big improvement from the primaries. He's also persuading independents to come his way, turning a 9-point deficit in March to a 13-point lead now. Meantime, Hillary Clinton is having a hard time shoring up the Democratic base. 15% of President Obama's voters last time now say they'll vote for Trump. So will Clinton get a bounce when the primaries are over? There are some clues in the poll that may happen, but she has to get by Bernie first.
Albuquerque is...
I'm not going to show that Bernie Sanders story, although I am going to show some Bernie Sanders clips a little later from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. But you can see from that polling data that Donald Trump has pulled basically into a dead heat with Hillary Clinton. In fact, in the ABC poll, the ABC Washington Post poll, she's slightly ahead. Donald Trump is slightly ahead of Hillary Clinton. In this next poll, the NBC, is it NBC Marist poll? I can't remember, but it's one NBC somebody poll. You'll see Hillary Clinton is slightly ahead, but it's statistically within the margin of error. So it's another poll showing that they're in a dead heat, and I will discuss why I think that is, according to several pundits and my personal opinion, after you watch that quick 30-second clip from Meet the Press this morning here.
News Wall Street Journal poll and what appears to be a dramatic tightening of this potential general election contest. Hillary Clinton led Donald Trump by just 3 points in our new poll, 46-43. But look where we were a month ago. Clinton had a double-digit lead then over Trump, 50-39. Bernie Sanders, by the way, does a lot better when matched up against Trump. He clobbers him, 54-39, a 15-point spread. I asked Hillary Clinton why, in light of these numbers, she thinks she's a stronger candidate than Sanders against Trump, and we'll get to that in the interview in a moment. But these results...
And I will get to that interview also in a moment. That's like the second question that Chuck Todd asked Hillary Clinton. She only did an interview over on NBC's Meet the Press. But you can see from both that NBC poll and from, ended up being the NBC Wall Street Journal poll and then the ABC Washington Post poll, Donald Trump, who was well behind both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, is now basically tied with Hillary Clinton. And it's probably because Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders haven't wrapped up the Democratic primary. And so Donald Trump has fairly quickly consolidated his Republican base, more quickly than a lot of people thought he would be able to. He's up to like 85% of Republican voters, while Hillary Clinton is still experiencing that split from Bernie Sanders voters who now say, oh, I could never vote for Hillary. But if past experience is any guide to future events, which it isn't always, but often is, then the people who supported the losing candidate will, in the vast majority, go and end up supporting the winning candidate in the primary. I've talked about how I'm a supporter of Bernie Sanders, but I'll definitely vote for Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. And some people think that Bernie Sanders should get out and he's hurting her, but Bernie Sanders does still have a chance, and that's the next topic I'm getting to is now the Democratic side of the 2016 presidential campaign. I think I have like 18 clips here, including 9 clips of Hillary Clinton and 7 clips of Bernie Sanders. But I want to start with a parody of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. This is from what you saw in the thumbnail of the video. It's the cold open on Saturday Night Live last night, where Hillary Clinton was played by Kate McKinnon, and Bernie Sanders, of course, was played by Larry David from, who helped create Seinfeld and did Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I just wanted to show a short clip kind of parodying Bernie Sanders especially, and the way he's dragging out the race, which I guess is the way it's playing in the mainstream media now. And I'll discuss that after you watch that clip over here.
Don't you work too late now?
Oh, I won't, Mrs. Clinton. I'm actually closing up the bar right now, so everybody's got to go. That means you too, sir.
No freaking way! I'm not going anywhere. I can stay here as long as I want.
Senator Sanders, I'm sorry, but the night is over.
No, it's not over. It's not over till I say it's over.
Oh, hello, Bernie. I didn't see you sitting behind me. So far behind me, you can never catch up.
Oh, shut up. You saw me. You even see me in your sleep, baby. Because I'm your worst nightmare.
Oh, please. My worst nightmare is a mandatory spa day, and you know it.
Mine is waiting over an hour at LensCrafters.
Oh, Bernie, it's always so just fine to see you. I love your suit, by the way. Looks old.
And I love your suit. Looks like you were just elected to the Galactic Council.
I wanted to leave it playing through that last joke because in the Hillary Clinton interview, I don't know if it will show up on the video the way it showed up on my TV, but she is wearing this kind of weird, shimmery outfit that seems almost like she was elected to the head of the Galactic Council. But then the other reason I wanted to show that Saturday Night Live clip is it shows that, at least in the pop culture world of Saturday Night Live, Bernie Sanders is being parodied as staying in the race too long because, of course, he has very little chance to win, but it's not impossible, and that's going to come up in the clips. But I also was reading the comments along the way. I saw this one person ask a question. Let me show this here. Sir JK asked anything about the Nevada Democratic Convention, and I had a couple people ask about that last week, but there was no coverage of it on any of the corporate media outlets last week. But this week there was some coverage of it, and you'll even see Bernie Sanders talk about it in one of the clips from the interview of Bernie Sanders I'm going to show in a few minutes. But first, here's a general overview of what's been going on the Democratic side from NBC's Chuck Todd, and it actually mentions what happened at the Nevada Democratic Convention in response to Sir JK's question there, coincidentally. So I will show you that clip and then talk about what Chuck Todd said, reports over in this clip.
These results also show what other polls have indicated, that Donald Trump is gaining ground as Republicans unite behind their candidate while Democrats remain deeply divided. Hillary Clinton is delivering a blunt message to Bernie Sanders supporters.
I will be the nominee for my party, Chris. That is already done, in effect. There is no way that I won't be.
Barring defections by superdelegates, Clinton needs just 85 more delegates to become the presumptive Democratic nominee. But Sanders is conceding nothing.
Before we will have the opportunity to defeat Donald Trump, we're going to have to defeat Secretary Clinton.
His campaign adding in a statement, it is clear that millions of Americans have growing doubts about the Clinton campaign. Some Democrats worry that Sanders' criticism will stick.
She has given speeches on Wall Street for $225,000 a speech.
And that the chaos on display at Nevada's state convention, where Sanders supporters lashed out, will break out in Philadelphia at the national convention. Nevada's party chair released threatening messages she says she received.
I just wanted to let you know that I think people like you should be hung in a public execution.
The Sanders slow walk may be doing damage. In a general election matchup, just 66% of Sanders voters say they plan to support Clinton. 17% support Trump. Clinton is more than hinting that it's time for him to get out.
I will do everything I can to unify the party. I did that when I pulled out in 2008. Some of you remember.
In some ways, it's deja vu all over again. In May of 2008, Clinton had to apologize after she defended staying in the nomination process this way.
We all remember Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June in California.
She may have a tough time winning over all of Sanders' supporters. 8 years ago, her voters liked President Obama. Right now, Sanders voters view her negatively. For now, Trump is playing up the Democratic divide.
I think Bernie should run as an independent, okay? Let him run.
Well, we know what Trump...
So I guess we know why it is that Donald Trump wants Bernie Sanders to stay in and run as an independent, which is basically the point that Chuck Todd made there. But there were a couple things I liked about that story. First, it did show what happened at the Nevada convention, a Democratic convention, sort of. It talked about the death threats from people who were supposedly on the side of Bernie Sanders. It didn't really talk about what had gotten the people so upset. And then some people said that there was violence or threats of violence, although you'll see Bernie Sanders is going to dispute that in a clip I'll show in a few minutes. But first I want to get to the 9 clips of... and before I get to the 9 clips of Hillary Clinton, the one other thing I liked about that clip was that they dug up that Bobby Kennedy clip I'd forgotten about, where in May of 2008, Hillary Clinton said she didn't need to drop out of the Democratic race against Barack Obama because, hey, Bobby Kennedy got shot in June in California. Like that, especially when you're running against the person trying to be the first black president, you don't want to use the possibility of assassination as why it is you're staying in the race. But I guess Bernie should say something about the possibility of Hillary Clinton getting indicted, which is probably even a lower probability than an assassination, or not as low a probability as an assassination, I should say, but still also a very low probability outcome of, but a reason Bernie could be staying in the race, although he could actually win the pledged delegates with a huge surge, as I will talk about when I get to the clips of Bernie Sanders, talking about whether he has any way of winning. But first I want to get to the clips of Hillary Clinton, who interviewed with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press. It wasn't the toughest interview, I don't think, but some of the questions were a little confrontational. You'll see this first one is sort of a follow-up on the news story that Chuck Todd did there about how Bernie Sanders may be hurting Hillary Clinton's chances against Donald Trump, and that's the first question that Chuck Todd asked Hillary Clinton, which you can see her answer over here.
Mind there. Anyway, with all that in mind, I sat down yesterday with Hillary Clinton right here in our studio, and I began by asking her about the threat that Bernie Sanders poses to her candidacy. Is Bernie Sanders now helping Donald Trump?
Oh, I don't think so. I think that Senator Sanders has every right to finish off his campaign however he chooses. I do think there will then be the obvious need for us to unify the party. I faced the same challenge in 2008. I will certainly do my part, reaching out to Senator Sanders, reaching out to his supporters, and I expect him to do his. And he said about a week ago he was going to spend 7 days a week trying to defeat Donald Trump, and I believe that's the case.
You know, earlier this week...
Oh, you know, earlier in the show I said the second question that Chuck Todd asked was about Bernie Sanders being a stronger candidate against Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton, according to a bunch of polls. But that's actually the third question. The second question he asked was actually about how she has changed her stance on whether she is the presumptive nominee. She's now basically saying she is going to be the nominee, while before she used to say she was. That was a change this week. Before she used to say, we're still fighting out for every vote, and it's not over till it's over. Well, I guess according to Hillary Clinton, it's over now, as you can see over in this clip.
You just said emphatically, look, I'm going to be the nominee.
Right.
Just about 10 days earlier, you weren't ready to say that. The only thing that has changed is you narrowly won Kentucky. Why are you comfortable saying, I'm going to be the nominee, and why did you think it was important to actually verbalize that?
Well, I think that having gone through 2008, as I did, it was much closer between then Senator Obama and myself in 2008. I actually won 9 of the last 12 contests in 2008, including Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, other states. And I wanted to make it clear that I know what this feels like, having lived through it. I have 3 million more votes. In the case of Senator Obama and myself, it was neck and neck in the popular vote. I have far more pledged delegates. It was much closer between me and Senator Obama. And I am going to be the nominee, and I want to spend a lot of my time, as you've seen me do, really taking on Trump, because I find what he says, the kind of candidacy he's presenting, to pose a danger to our country.
It's interesting.
So she's ready to say that she's going to be the nominee, which is a change, as Chuck Todd pointed out there. And I think it's slightly premature, and I think it's a strategic move on her part because she's about to lose a bunch of primaries, and she even lost a few primaries during the time that she changed from saying she was fighting it out to where she's saying she's going to be the nominee. So it was actually a good question from Chuck Todd that she didn't really answer, but he didn't really follow up on it. His next question was actually the one I promised before about the polls showing that Bernie Sanders is a stronger candidate against Donald Trump, and I will discuss Hillary Clinton's answer after you watch that clip number 9. Number 9 over here.
Interesting, though, he is making a case, Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, to superdelegates, and there's another memo they've put out this weekend, just showing how much stronger he is against Donald Trump than you are. Our own poll, he's got a 15-point lead over Trump. You have a 3-point lead over Trump. You made an electability case 7 days before the final day of the primary season to superdelegates back in 2008. Why shouldn't superdelegates? You wanted them to listen to your argument 8 years ago. Why shouldn't superdelegates listen to the Bernie Sanders argument and say, you know what? Maybe he is more likable.
Well, first of all, people have voted for me overwhelmingly in the Democratic primary process, and that is absolutely clear and very different from where we were in 2008. I could make the case, which I did, that I was actually slightly ahead in the popular vote when we ended that primary, but I was behind in the pledged delegates. It's also fair to say that I have been vetted and tested, and I think that that puts me in a very strong position.
You don't think Bernie Sanders has been vetted? You don't think this one long year of campaign, your campaign against him, has vetted him?
Let me say that I don't think he's had a single negative ad ever run against him, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But we know what we're going into, and we understand what it's going to take to win in the fall. And finally, I would say that, polls this far out mean nothing. They certainly mean nothing to me, and I think if people go back and look, they really mean nothing in terms of analyzing what's going to happen in the fall.
Do you think this lead for Sanders is an illusion, a little bit?
I'll let others speak to that. I just think that I'm in a much stronger position, have been, and the voters who have turned out and given me 3 million more votes believe that as well.
It does seem he has some specific demands that he would like to see.
And I'm actually skipping over part of Chuck Todd's interview there. I didn't take clips from every single part. I think I skipped 3 different questions, but I apparently took 9 clips, so I took maybe 80% of the interview, although I think that's along with the 2 quick news clips, the poll clip and the news about the Democrats. That's all I took from Meet the Press today. I thought that was that wasn't quite a softball question. I thought the follow-up wasn't as strong as it could have been, but in this next question, I think that the follow-up is definitely lacking from Chuck Todd. You'll see he asked Hillary Clinton about the possibility of a debate with Bernie Sanders before the California primary, he doesn't really mention that she promised earlier that she would do one. And you'll see that she totally changes the subject to attacking Donald Trump, and Chuck Todd never really brings her back to the original question, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Accepted an invitation to debate in California before the California primary. Have you thought about accepting that invitation?
You know, we'll consider it, but I'm really
focused. So you're not ruling it out yet?
I haven't thought about it. We'll consider it, but I think what's important is we're not going to let, at least my campaign, is not going to let Donald Trump try to normalize himself in this period between.
So you think a competitive
and
Democratic primary is doing nothing but helping Donald Trump right now?
No, I didn't say that. I said that if we don't respond to Donald Trump, which I am doing, as you have seen, I've said he was unqualified to be president. I believe that deeply. I am going to keep focused on Donald Trump because I will be the nominee. I will be running against Donald Trump in the fall, and I do not want Americans and, you know, good thinking Republicans as well as Democrats and independents to start to believe that this is a normal candidacy. It isn't. What he is advocating, look what he's done this past week, you know, attacking our closest ally, England, heaping praise on a dangerous dictator in North Korea, reiterating his call to pull out of NATO, our strong military alliance, talking about letting other countries have nuclear weapons, advocating a return to torture and even murdering the families of suspected terrorists. That is beyond the pale, and it poses immediate dangers. I go around the country, Chuck, all the time, and in my events in the last few weeks, I've had Republicans coming to tell me they are supporting me. They have different reasons. For a lot of women, it's the divisive, demeaning comments that Donald Trump has made about women. For others, a businessman just told me yesterday in Texas, he said, I'm a Republican. I've always voted Republican. I'm here giving you money, supporting you, because I do business all over the world, and I'm watching what this Trump effect is doing to our standing in the world.
You know, it's interesting, though.
Whoa. I don't know. I mean, I agreed with a lot of what Hillary Clinton was saying there, but I feel like I'm kind of spinning here. I'm kind of spun here because what was the question again? Wasn't the question about whether Hillary Clinton would debate Bernie Sanders again? And it was all, the answer was all sorts of true things about Donald Trump, things I agree with about Donald Trump, but I would like to have at least one more debate clip roundup. I'd like to see another debate, but of course now it's not in Hillary Clinton's interest to debate, and so she didn't answer the question, and unfortunately Chuck Todd didn't even make her answer the question, and that makes me sad. I think I need a little bit of pepping up from the puppy here. Is there? Oh, look who's joined me. Okay, I feel better now. Okay, I feel a little less spun. I think I can go back to the Hillary Clinton clips now. The next clip is actually Hillary Clinton. This is clip number 11, where Chuck Todd actually brings up what should be the scariest issue for people who don't want Donald Trump to be president, which is that people want change, and Hillary Clinton is not change. And she gives an answer here saying that, you know, the voters are going to get serious and he doesn't have a plan and I have a plan, and I don't know. I'm not sure it's true, but you can let me know if you think it makes you feel any better after you watch that clip over here.
There's a lot of Democrats that are quietly nervous that your candidacy isn't responding to what the populace wants right now, right? The populace wants major change. The populace wants major shakeups, and in some ways your campaign has been about you're going to build on the progress Barack Obama has made. That isn't what this electorate is saying. This electorate is saying they want major changes. We have our own poll. We asked them, do you want essentially testing your message versus testing his message, even if it comes with an unpredictability? And by 10 points, they want the unpredictability. That's how fed up they are. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I have 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. And I think voters, as opposed to, you know, the kind of back and forth in the public arena, when voters show up to vote, they take that vote seriously. And yes, I know he has a plurality of Republicans who have voted for him. But I think in the course of this campaign, we are going to demonstrate he has no ideas. There's no evidence he has any ideas about making America great, as he advertises. He seems to be particularly focused on making himself appear great. And as we go through this campaign, we're going to be demonstrating the hollowness of his rhetoric and the danger of a lot of what he has said. And I am very confident that the American people are going to want change. Every election is about the future. I've laid out very positive approaches. I'm not running for anybody's third term. I'm running for my first term, but I also want to do what works. My goal is to produce positive results for the American people, more good jobs, rising incomes, the kinds of tangible progress that I think people are yearning for and they need and deserve to see.
You know,
I don't know, did that work for you? That answer to the question, how can Hillary Clinton win an election when so many people want change and she is not really an agent of change? I don't know. That answer, that like Todd said at the beginning of that clip, a lot of Democrats are worried. That's something I am worried about, that Hillary Clinton isn't an agent of change. There are a couple other things about her candidacy that worry me, and it's a reason why I will still be voting for Bernie Sanders on June 7th unless something happens to change my mind. But one thing that's not going to change my mind is the new slogan the Clinton campaign has come up with. And you'll see Chuck Todd specifically asks, you know, what's your slogan to compete against Donald Trump's Make America Great Again and Bernie Sanders? I can't even remember what he says that slogan is, but apparently Hillary Clinton does have a new slogan to try out, and you'll see her repeat it about a dozen times in the minute-long clip I have for you right here.
Bernie Sanders has been talking about a political revolution, a future you can believe in. Obviously, Donald Trump with the Make America Great Again is one of these slogans that has taken off, for better or for worse. If you could sum up, what is the big idea of your candidacy?
Look, we are stronger together. We are stronger together in facing our internal challenges and our external ones. We are stronger together if we work to improve the economy, and that's going to mean trying to get the Republicans to do what will actually help produce more jobs, like we saw in the 1990s. We are stronger together when we have a bipartisan, even nonpartisan foreign policy that protects our country and that provides the kind of steady, strong, smart leadership that the rest of the world expects from us. And I know that you know, slogans come and go and all the rest of it, but when I look at where we are in our country together, we need to unify the country. We are stronger together when we act on a set of plans and priorities that will redound to the benefit of the American people.
How do you
So what do you think? Are we stronger together? Apparently Hillary Clinton thinks we're stronger together, and I guess in some ways it's a good slogan because it points out the divisiveness of Donald Trump, and I guess it shows that Hillary Clinton is going to be a unifier. But one of the problems with that is that her negatives are almost as high as Donald Trump's. I think she's like 4 points lower in her negatives. I can't remember exactly what the numbers are. I think I showed it back at the beginning in that the internals of that ABC poll, the ABC Washington Post poll. But they are very close together. And when Chuck Todd asked Hillary Clinton about how she's going to unify the country despite her high negatives, one of the things she's quick to point out is that her negatives aren't quite as high as Donald Trump's, which probably isn't the best answer. And I don't think the rest of her answer is that great either, as I will discuss after you watch that over here.
You're a polarizing figure right now in American politics. You have an unfavorable rating that is almost as high as Donald Trump's. How do you do it?
Well, it's not as high, and
no, it's not, but it's
well, look, but he's gotten
pretty polarizing. He's polarizing.
Well,
how do you do it if you're elected president? This is a polarized country.
Just the way I did it when I was First Lady, Senator, and Secretary of State. When I have these jobs, Chuck, I actually get things done, and I work with people across the aisle. Honestly, I worked with Republicans in the 90s to create the Children's Health Insurance Program. I worked with Tom DeLay, the hammer in the House, to reform adoption and foster care. I worked with practically every Republican, and I worked as Secretary of State to get things done, to reduce nuclear weapons, for example, between Russia and myself. So I have a track record, and I'm going to remind people of that because it's not just rhetoric for me. When I was Secretary of State, I had a very high approval rating, as you can go back and check, because I was doing a job that people could see. When I get into the arena, and all of the negativity that's been thrown at me for 25 years is recycled and put out there. I know I've got work to do, but I'm very confident that it's going to be successful.
I know we're over, but I got a few.
So I don't know that answer again. The first answer, my negatives aren't as high as Donald Trump's. I don't think is a very good answer at all. And then the rest of the answer, I didn't think was that much of a way to unify people and to answer her problems with being a polarizing figure. But I don't know, maybe some of the negatives will fall away. Although I did see at least one pundit on one of the shows, and a couple other pundits agree that possibly their negatives are at the lowest they're going to be right now, and it's only going to get worse from here. And I think that's quite possible that this is going to be, what do they call it, a race to the bottom. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I have 2 more clips of Hillary Clinton before I get to the 7 clips of Bernie Sanders. In this first one, this is actually, I think, a really good answer from Hillary Clinton. She's very ready to defend Bill Clinton's record in the 90s. There are some flaws in her argument, but she puts it together very nicely. You'll see, well, Chuck Todd is asking about how both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump in some ways are running against the Clintons' record in the 90s, and here's her answer, which I will discuss a little more after you watch that clip here.
Been running against some of the economic policies of the 90s, trade, Wall Street deregulation, things like that. Does that concern you?
Well, they're not running against 23 million new jobs. They're not running against incomes going up for every American, not just those at the top. They're not running against median family income going up 17%, and for African Americans, 33%, and lifting more people out of poverty and ending up with a balanced budget and a surplus. Now, I have said I want to renegotiate NAFTA. I voted against the only multinational trade deal that came before me when I was in the Senate. I have stated my opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership based on what it was negotiated to include. So I'm more than happy to take on that argument. But I ask people, when they criticize the 90s, what do they criticize, the peace or the prosperity? Because I think a lot of Americans, as I travel around the country, think of that as being a time when they thought they were getting ahead. Then we ran smack dab into the failed Republican economic policies.
And I know you're not going to...
So that seems like a well-prepared, well-memorized, well-executed soundbite or talking point or set of talking points about how when I hear people ask what, criticize the 90s, I ask, what don't you like, the peace or the prosperity? And she's got like all those things to tick off that are so great about the 90s. Of course, the problem is, and one of the things that both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders have pointed out along the way is that, Donald Trump has talked, I think, a little bit about the tech bubble. I heard somebody talking about the 90s tech bubble, and that was also the deregulation of Wall Street, and the end of Glass-Steagall happened in the 90s, and there was also some criminal justice things. If you look at the new Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and even The Divide by Matt Taibbi, you'll see the root of a lot of these problems go back to the Clinton 90s. So despite that really good answer from Hillary Clinton, there are some flaws in that argument. And I want to show one more clip of Hillary Clinton. This is I cut out part of the interview where Chuck Todd talked about Mark Cuban saying he's ready to be considered as vice president, and I'm not showing any clips of the Mark Cuban interview on Meet the Press. But you'll see at the very end of Hillary Clinton's answer, she talks about her willingness to consider Mark Cuban or people who are real business successes instead of fake business successes. And, of course, you know who she's talking about there. And then Chuck Todd asks about that, can she give Donald Trump credit for anything? And she doesn't really answer that question. Instead, she pivots to this question of his tax returns that apparently she's decided she's really going to stick Donald Trump on, as you'll see, and I will discuss after you watch that final Hillary Clinton clip here.
Especially successful business people who are really successful as opposed to pretend successful, I think have a lot to offer.
Pretend successful. You don't think, is there anything Donald Trump's done that you think should be praised?
I think he needs to release his tax returns. The only two we have show that he hasn't paid a penny in taxes. and yet he goes around talking about Make America Great. You know, that means paying for our military. That means paying for our roads. That means paying for the VA. That means a lot of things. And if you've got someone running for president who's afraid to release his tax returns because it will expose the fact that he pays no federal income tax, I think that's a big problem.
But my question was, there's nothing about his background that is praiseworthy?
We'll find out, because we have to get below the hype. We have to find what the reality is.
And you don't feel like you know that?
I don't think the country knows it.
But do you?
I think that we're beginning to find out, but I don't think we know enough, and that's why he should release his tax returns.
All right.
Prove that he actually has the level of success he claims to have.
Madam Secretary, I got to leave it there.
Thanks
for coming on. We'll see you soon.
Glad to be here.
So that's the end of the Chuck Todd interview with Hillary Clinton, and you see there that she wasn't going to name anything that she can give Donald Trump credit for, but she obviously has prepared that answer about his tax returns, that she's going to be pushing forward on the tax returns going into the general election. Of course, that's assuming she's going to be the nominee, and that brings me to the next 7 clips are 3 different interviews that Bernie Sanders did on the Sunday morning news shows this morning. I'm going to show 3 from ABC, then 3 from CNN, and then 1 from CBS. And Bernie Sanders, of course, on all 3 different interviews had to justify why he's staying in the race. Does he have a credible path to win? And the first clip I'm going to show is about 3 minutes long from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, basically answering that question with a couple follow-up questions from George Stephanopoulos over here.
It's gotten pretty definitive right now. She says, I am going to be the Democratic nominee. There's no way I won't be. Can you lay out a credible path to stopping her?
Well, I think she might want to talk to the people of Indiana, West Virginia, and Oregon who voted very strongly for me in the last 3 contests, people of Kentucky who kind of split the delegates. And I think we're going to do very well in the 9 remaining contests. So I think Secretary Clinton is jumping the gun a little bit here. Here is the scenario. We understand that we have about 46% of the pledged delegates. In order to get 50%, we're going to have to do very, very, very well in the remaining 9 contests. I think we have a shot. It's going to be an uphill climb, but I think we have a shot to do that. We're going to fight as hard as we can for every delegate and every vote. The other point that I would make, George, is that if you look at virtually all of the polls done in the last 6-7 weeks, in every one of them, nationally polls and statewide polls, we defeat Donald Trump by larger margins, in some cases significantly larger margins than does Secretary Clinton. You got a lot of superdelegates out there. 400 of them actually came on board Clinton's campaign before anybody else was in the race. I asked those superdelegates to take a look at which candidate is the stronger candidate to defeat Donald Trump, something that has got to happen in my view. I think the objective evidence is our campaign is the strongest campaign to defeat Trump.
But as you know, the Clinton campaign has pointed out that they've gotten about 3 million more votes than you have. And when you look at the delegate map, she only needs 90 more pledged delegates to get ahead of you to win. She has twice, her lead right now over you is twice as large as President Obama's in 2008. And to win, you not only have to do very well, you have to get close to 70% of the vote in every remaining state. Right. That's really not possible.
I wouldn't say I would say it's a very steep uphill climb. But you know, from day one, it has been an uphill climb for us. We started taking on the entire establishment. We've now won 20 states. And between you and me, George, I think we're going to win many of the remaining contests. Now, one of the points that Clinton makes is
factually many's not good
incorrect.
Enough.
She is not 3 million votes ahead of us. They have conveniently forgotten the states that have caucuses where we won overwhelmingly. But I think the reason that we are going to do well in the remaining states, and the case we make to the superdelegates, is the Democratic Party has got to open up its doors in a way it hasn't to working people, to young people, to low-income people who are sick and tired of establishment politics and establishment economics. We need a campaign, an election coming up, which does not have 2 candidates who are really very, very strongly disliked. I don't want to see the American people voting for the lesser of 2 evils. I want the American people to be voting for a vision of economic justice, of social justice, of environmental justice, of racial justice. That is the campaign we are running, and that's why we are getting the support we are.
Is that how you would describe
So I don't know, is that a credible path? I mean, it is possible for Bernie to win a majority of the pledged delegates if he wins like almost 70% of the delegates in the upcoming contest, but since they're not winner-take-all states, it's almost impossible. And you can hear that from what Bernie Sanders was saying there. He's pretty much acknowledging it's almost impossible, but of course, almost impossible isn't the same thing as impossible, and there could still be some big surge in the next few weeks. Bernie Sanders has been doing pretty well, and they could end up being pretty close in the pledged delegates, and then that would mean it would be up to the superdelegates. And I'll show a question where Bernie Sanders doesn't really answer if he'd be willing to win by superdelegates tipping the balance, which is also extremely unlikely given how many more superdelegates Hillary Clinton currently has who are saying they're going to vote for her, although their votes don't really count until they actually vote at the convention. But one thing I wanted to show, a really quick clip, is the follow-up question that George Stephanopoulos asked. He couldn't let Bernie Sanders get away with using the lesser of two evils metaphor or whatever without actually asking if he meant that Hillary Clinton was evil. And, of course, Bernie Sanders backed off of that in this 22-second clip here.
Against Donald Trump, the lesser of two evils?
Well, if you look, no, I wouldn't describe it, but that's what the American people are saying. If you look at the favorability ratings of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, both of them have very, very high unfavorables. You're not going to disagree with me on that,
There's no question about that. Absolutely. Let me just go on, though, because our poll also...
So I guess that's a fine distinction, but it's a distinction between saying, I'm not saying that Hillary Clinton is the lesser of two evils. I'm saying people are saying that Hillary Clinton would be the lesser of two evils, but I guess there is a distinction to be made there. And before I move on to the three clips from the CNN interview of Bernie Sanders, I wanted to show the clip I promised earlier where Bernie Sanders actually addresses the claims that there were violence at this Nevada Democratic Convention. And he says there wasn't actually violence. There was rudeness, but not violence. And that's in response to this question from George Stephanopoulos about that and the possibility that Bernie Sanders supporters may protest at the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia. You can see Bernie Sanders' answer to that, to both those issues over here.
Those protests at the Nevada State Convention last week, and a number of your supporters are now filing permits to protest in Philadelphia as well. Are you encouraging that, and are you confident you can keep the situation in Philadelphia under control?
Well, one of the things that bothers me about media coverage of Nevada, I saw a story on the New York Times, chairs being thrown. Do you see any chairs being thrown? There weren't any. They had a bunch of police officers there. To the best of my knowledge, George, I wasn't there. Nobody was touched. What happened is there was no violence. What happened is people were rude. That's not good. They were booing. That's not good. They behaved in some ways that were a little bit boorish. Not good. But let's not talk about that as violence. Do people in Philadelphia, going to Philadelphia or any place else in America, have the right to demonstrate, have the right to express their concerns? I thought that that was what the First Amendment of the Constitution was about, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. So, no, we're not encouraging anybody. In fact, I read about this in the newspaper the other day. But, of course, people have the right to peaceably assemble and make their views heard. And let me just say this. Essentially, what's going on, and the Democratic Party has got to recognize this. Our supporters do not go to fancy, high-priced fundraising dinners. That's not who they are. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They're worried about the future of their children, whether their kids are going to get a college education. Those are the people who are coming into our movement. And I hope the Democratic leadership is smart enough to say, come on in. We want you in. Your views are the views of the majority of the American people. Let's work together. That's what I hope the convention is about. And obviously, I hope that I win the nomination.
If you don't, sir,
And I've heard some argument back and forth about exactly what happened at the Democratic Convention in Nevada. And I think what Bernie Sanders is saying there is actually accurate, that there was rudeness, there was yelling, booing, but I think people may have felt more offended than threatened. And I think there was video of someone who like lifted up a chair but then put it back down, but there was no chair throwing, no actual violence, no one arrested, but there was, and then of course there were those death threats to the chairperson of the Nevada convention. That they played that in that ABC clip I played earlier. But now I want to move on to the next set of clips from CNN State of the Union, where Bernie Sanders did an interview with Jake Tapper. And this first clip is Bernie Sanders actually kind of responding to something I showed Hillary Clinton saying earlier, that the reason that Bernie Sanders is doing so well against Donald Trump compared to the way Hillary Clinton is performing in polls is because no one's ever run a negative ad against Bernie Sanders. And you'll see Bernie Sanders denies that somewhat, but also can't completely deny the fact that Hillary Clinton's had a lot more negativity thrown her way over the years, as I will discuss after you watch that clip over here.
Every poll taken in the last 2 months has me doing better against Trump than Hillary Clinton.
Well, okay. One thing about that poll, a lot of experts I've talked to, political experts, including people who like you a lot, say that, first of all, you can't base an argument about what should happen in November based on polls in May. But beyond that, it's just empirically, you have not withstood the kind of decades-long beating that Hillary Clinton has, not to mention the year-long difficult coverage that Donald Trump has. Do you dispute that? You really think that the kind of coverage has been as piercing and as critical of you as it has been on the other two?
Hey, check out some of the TV ads that were run against me in 2006 when I ran for the United States Senate. Very ugly, very vicious, and a lot of crap has been out there, dishonest stuff about me. I believe the reason, and I say this with all due respect to Secretary Clinton, I'm not saying she cannot beat Donald Trump. I think she can. I think it's a good chance she can. I am the stronger candidate because we appeal to independents, people who are not in love with either the Democratic or the Republican Party, often for very good reasons. Right. And the issues that we are talking about, income and wealth inequality, the influence of Wall Street, the fact that we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all, or paid family and medical leave, those are resonating among people who support me in a way that Secretary Clinton is not getting support.
Senator, so you're out.
So I don't know what you all think about that. I think that the ads run against Bernie Sanders in his 2006 Senate campaign don't really measure up to the amount of negativity that's been thrown towards Hillary Clinton over the years. I mean, I'm old enough that I remember the 1990s. I graduated from law school in 1995, so that was basically right in, or that's still in Clinton's first term, so that lets you know that I definitely have a political memory back then. And Hillary Clinton actually, I've heard, I saw one analysis that said that she took the brunt of the anger of people against the women's liberation, like women moving out of the home and into the workplace, that all the anger that people felt about that in various parts of society have been, at least in the 1990s when that was really taking hold in our society, that was all focused on Hillary Clinton. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that she got a lot of negativity from Republicans for some comment about she's not staying home and baking cookies, and for being too strident and too involved in Bill Clinton's presidency, and of course her whole healthcare plan that was sort of like Obamacare, a precursor of Obamacare, went down in flames. So I do remember a lot of negativity being sent towards Hillary Clinton, and I don't think Bernie Sanders has had that negativity. I don't think that's why Donald Trump is doing better in the polls than Hillary. I think maybe Bernie Sanders would still be a stronger candidate against Donald Trump. It's just very unlikely he will be. But I want to move on to the next clip. This is the one I promised, the second of the three clips from CNN State of the Union. This is about 4 minutes long because Jake Tapper asked this question I was talking about before, that whether the contest for pledged delegates, will that decide whether who wins? And that's always decided the Democratic nominee in the past, since they've had these superdelegates, they've never changed the outcome. And so Jake Tapper saying if you don't end up getting enough pledged delegates to beat the number that Hillary Clinton's gotten, do you give up at that point? And you'll hear Bernie Sanders actually doesn't really commit to that, even though the final follow-up that Jake Tapper asks is whether he wants to get rid of superdelegates, which he does, but he's not willing to say he's going to give up on the superdelegates as the way he might win for reasons, well, that I will discuss what I think they might be after you watch that 4-minute clip where Bernie Sanders won't give up on the possibility of winning by superdelegates despite a valiant effort by Jake Tapper on CNN this morning here.
Out on the trail every day talking about your goal, which remains to secure a majority of the pledged delegates. Should we assume that that means you believe the candidate who has the majority of pledged delegates by the end of this process should be the nominee?
This is what I believe. I believe and look, I am good at arithmetic, and I understand that it is a very, very uphill fight to go from 46%, where we are today, to 50% in the 9 remaining contests. I got that. But the other point, and we're going to try, California obviously is the big race that remains. We think we have a chance to do very well in California and in New Jersey, etc. But what I also believe, it's incumbent upon some of these superdelegates, people who came on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race, to take an objective look at which candidate is stronger. And it's not just polls, Jake. Democrats and progressives win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when people are demoralized and don't come out to vote. Any objective assessment of our campaign versus Clinton's campaign, I think, will conclude we have the energy, we have the excitement, we have the young people, we have the working people. We can drive a large voter turnout so that we not only win the White House, but we regain control of the Senate, do well in the House, and win governor's chairs up and down the line.
But with all due respect, sir, she has more votes than you, and she has more pledged delegates. She has more pledged delegates than you, and the question is just a simple yes or no. Should the candidate with the most pledged delegates at the end of the process, June 7th, after New Jersey and California, the last contests, should the person with the most pledged delegates be the Democratic nominee?
Well, I think if that was the only criteria, then you get rid of all of the superdelegates, which may not be a bad idea. But you do have superdelegates. You got 700 superdelegates. And I am not a great fan.
For the pledged delegates, the majority of Democratic voters to pick one candidate, and then the superdelegates to actually go with a different candidate? You're not suggesting that.
Well, it's very funny. It's very funny that you asked me that question when you had 400 pledged delegates come on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race. That's called an anointment process. That's called the establishment talking. That's called the big money interests saying, this is who we want to be president. We are where we are right now.
Yeah, and
where we are right now, Jake.
Right.
And where we are is we are fighting to win the pledged delegates. So before I can answer your question, let's see what's going to happen. But if you do have, if your argument is, let's get rid of all the superdelegates, that may not be a bad idea.
Well, would you? Well,
but they are there. And I think.
So let's talk about that. Let's pursue that, because no matter what, whether you get the nomination or you don't, you're going to have a seat at the table when it comes to what is in the Democratic Party platform. You're going to have influence on what happens, no matter what, nominee or not. Should the party do away with superdelegates?
I think they should very much. I think we need a serious discussion about the role of superdelegates. Clearly, the current situation is undemocratic. It is ill-advised, and it needs to change. To what degree, I would like to see a change. We are talking about that right now. But the status quo clearly is not acceptable to me, and that has got to be changed. And I think what has got to happen at the platform is the Democratic platform, whether I'm the nominee or not, has got to stand up for the middle class and working class of this country, has got to be prepared to take on Wall Street and the greed of corporate America, the outrageous level of income and wealth inequality in this country, and make it clear to every middle class family in America, we are on the side of the middle class, the young people, the workers of this country, not Wall Street, not the greed of corporate America.
Last question.
So, as you saw in that clip, Bernie Sanders would not commit to saying that if he didn't have the most pledged delegates that he would give up at that point. Oh, and for the live viewers, I noticed there were some people saying there was a freeze. I got some weird error message along the way. If you're looking for the video, this video at the web address where I uploaded the live stream, I'm probably going to unlist this and have to upload the recorded version. Hopefully it will include that entire 4+ minute answer from Bernie Sanders without any freezing or any kind of glitch. I don't know exactly what happened. I'll scope it out after I finish the broadcast. But before I finish the CNN interview clips with Bernie Sanders, I want to show him answer a question. He was also asked about this over on CBS, but I watched State of the Union first. So this is Bernie Sanders talking about how he is endorsing the opponent of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who in the primary in Florida, her Democratic opponent, and also that if he were to become the president or the head of the Democratic Party by being the Democratic nominee, that he would not reappoint Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz to be the head of the Democratic National Committee. And I will discuss that clip after you watch it over here.
Your campaign and many of your supporters have argued that Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, has not been neutral in her position as chair. Your campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, in particular, has been very critical. She is being challenged right now in a primary by Tim Canova. He is a law professor who opposes the Pacific trade deal that you oppose. He supports you. He's already raised $1 million. You've been calling for a revolution. In Florida, are you with Wasserman Schultz, or are you with her opponent?
Well, clearly I favor her opponent. His views are much closer to mine than Wasserman Schultz's. And let me also say this, in all due respect to the current chairperson, if elected president, she would not be reappointed to be chair of the DNC.
Senator Bernie Sanders, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck out there in the campaign trail.
Now, that is kind of harsh from Bernie Sanders to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, although one thing that he said over on CBS's Face the Nation talking to John Dickerson in the clip I didn't take because it was pretty duplicative, but over in that clip he talked about how he knows Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz and he personally likes her and thinks she's a nice person. He just doesn't think she's the right person to lead the Democratic National Committee. And I'm going to show one clip from CBS's Face the Nation, not that one, but this is actually where John Dickerson, well, first you'll see Bernie Sanders make a point. This is the end of his previous answer where he mentions that Hillary Clinton had promised to debate him before the California primary, and now she's not doing it, which is something Chuck Todd never brought up when he was talking to Hillary Clinton. But then John Dickerson actually asks him about whether he thinks the system is rigged against him, which is kind of close to the Debbie Wasserman Schultz question, which I'm not going to show. And actually, Bernie Sanders' answer is food for thought that I will tell you what my thought was after the food for thought, after you watch it with me, over in this clip.
Secretary Clinton agreed way back when to do a debate in California in May. We are hoping that the Democratic National Committee will ask her to keep her word and allow that debate to go forward.
One of the things I hear from a lot of your supporters, the people who are part of this movement you've created, is they really think that it's rigged against you, that the system, it's not just that you're fighting the establishment, but that the establishment has essentially bent the rules to defeat you. Do you buy into that idea?
Well, this is what I will say, John. The world that I see going out on the campaign trail, where people are working 2 or 3 hours, where they can't afford to send their children to college, where young people want real change in terms of climate change and a tax on carbon, is such a different world than where the political establishment is. It is really, it's like two parallel universes. And what we have done, and I'm very proud of it, is bring, I think, millions of people into the political process who formerly were not in it. Right now in California, What I'm reading is that there's a tremendous surge in people registering to vote. So, you know, when you take on the entire political establishment, when you take on the financial establishment, when you take on the media establishment, John, it is very hard in this campaign, and CBS does better than most, I have to tell you, to allow serious discussion about serious issues, which is a handicap to us. You know, if I were insulting somebody, we'd get a lot of attention, but real discussion about why the middle class is disappearing and income and wealth inequality is growing, somehow, you know, for corporate media, not so much interest in that.
Let me ask you about a member of the establishment.
I like the fact that Bernie Sanders actually talked about the corporate media, which you don't hear a lot of talk about the corporate media on the corporate media. So it's nice to have someone mention the fact that the corporate media isn't interested in a lot of the issues that are of interest to middle class and working class voters that Bernie Sanders has been championing. And I thought that was a pretty good answer as to whether the system was rigged, and he didn't really say to tear down the system. And I hope the Bernie Sanders supporters, if Bernie Sanders, as is the most likely outcome, doesn't become the nominee, that most of his supporters, the vast majority of them, will end up voting for Hillary Clinton, as I will end up doing, even though I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders on June 7th here in California. And I haven't given up all hope. Like Bernie Sanders said there is this possible surge in California, and there are over 500 delegates in California, and I think the pledged delegates are really what matter. I don't even look at the unpledged, the super delegates. If Bernie Sanders were actually to get, 50% plus one of the pledged delegates, I think he would have to be the nominee, or it would be then it would be a big problem. But that's almost impossible, not impossible, and so I will put my vote where my values are, I guess. And anyway, you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. And that's the last clip I'm going to show on the 2016 presidential race, or kind of, because so this next topic, because of YouTube's weird monetization policies about sensitive topics I'm not supposed to cover if I want to monetize my videos, I normally don't try to talk too much about terrorism. I'm not talking about terrorism, but it's actually, we don't even know if it is terrorism. It could actually be mechanical failure. It's this missing airliner, the EgyptAir airliner that left Paris, never made it to Cairo. They found some debris, but they don't know. There was some data from the flight instrumentation that came a few seconds before the crash that showed there was smoke and possibly fire in laboratory near the cockpit. Maybe some cockpit windows blew out, and it could still be terrorism or mechanical failure. And the reason I wanted to do this topic, even though it threatens the sensitivity of my video for monetization, is because I thought it was interesting the way different programs covered it. Meet the Press did not cover EgyptAir at all. There was no mention of it on the entire program, and they were really focused in on the political campaign. Only Fox News Sunday led with it. Well, you'll see CBS's Face the Nation also leads with it, but just barely, and then talks about the political campaign is really the main issue. Only on Fox News Sunday did they lead with it, and when they went to the political campaign, they said it was like a big issue in the campaign, which it really wasn't, as you'll see when I get to this next clip from Fox News Sunday with Jay Johnson. But first, here's the introduction to Fox News Sunday from their guest host, John Roberts, really focusing on the EgyptAir flight as terrorism. Not completely sure, but really playing it up for reasons I will discuss, and you can probably figure them out for yourself, but I'll discuss it after you watch that clip here.
I'm John Roberts in for Chris Wallace. The EgyptAir crash raises new questions about the terror threat and U.S. airport security.
Individuals and groups do remain intent on attacking the aviation system.
With the TSA under the microscope, how will this impact the already long lines at airports across the country? We'll discuss that with Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, and get reaction from Congressman Michael McCall, chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee. both only on Fox News Sunday. Then the crash becomes a focal point in the Trump-Clinton clash on terror.
You know, she won't use the term radical Islamic terrorism. You understand that? She won't use it.
We'll speak with the head of Donald Trump's National Security Advisory Committee, Senator Jeff Sessions. It's a Fox News Sunday exclusive. Plus, we'll ask our Sunday panel.
So you can see terrorism, 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 and the reason I think Fox News is emphasizing terrorism, not hard to guess. There was this big Fox News opinion dynamics poll this last week that came out comparing Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and one of the things Donald Trump did better on than Hillary Clinton is, strong leader fighting terrorism, and it's this old thing about how voters would rather have someone who's strong and wrong than, meek and right or whatever, and but they kind of, I think that's why Fox News is playing it up, because the more the election is about terrorism, the better chance that Donald Trump has of beating Hillary Clinton. And that may also be why Hillary Clinton was almost going as far as Donald Trump in saying that this missing airliner was taken down as the result of terrorism. And even though it's still unknown, sometimes, or I watched these clips, all these clips I'm about to show you, and at first I was thinking maybe Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are both saying it's likely terrorism because they get intelligence briefings and maybe they know something, but you'll see the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, at the end here of these series of clips, he's actually not sure it is terrorism. So maybe it's just like I was saying before, that Hillary Clinton is saying it because she wants to appear, just as strong and wrong as Donald Trump. But Jay Johnson, the Secretary of Homeland Security, responding to both what Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump said on Fox News Sunday, was much more reticent, much more cautious about saying the cause of the downing of the airliner, as I will discuss after you watch that minute here.
It's too early to tell whether or not this was terrorism. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump are taking a different tack, both of them pointing toward terrorism. Here's what they said about it earlier in the week.
It does appear that it was an act of terrorism. Exactly how, of course, the investigation will have to determine.
A plane got blown out of the sky. And if anybody thinks it wasn't blown out of the sky, you're 100% wrong, folks, okay? You're 100% wrong. Donald Trump a little more forceful on this, but both of them suggesting terrorism is behind this. Are they both a little far out over their skis on this, given
what we know? Still early in the investigation. At this point, we do not rule out an act of terrorism, but it's still early, and there's a lot still unfolding.
But these are two presidential candidates who have both made a declaration they believe that it's terrorism. Should they wait if they're looking for a job like this?
I have no comment about that, except to say that I think we'll know a lot more at some point in the next couple days.
Of course, the last bomb to bring down an aircraft was the Russian airliner.
So, I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comments section as to why it is both Donald Trump so emphatically and Hillary Clinton pretty clearly are saying that they both think this Egypt airliner was brought down by terrorism, when the evidence just isn't in. I mean, it's still possible, even likely, but certainly not certain. Are they doing it because they're getting these intelligence briefings, or are they doing it because they both want to appear strong to the voters? I think it's unfortunately probably the latter. And like I said, I want to compare what Fox News Sunday did there to the other corporate outlets, 3 of them. The fourth one, Meet the Press, as I said earlier, they didn't even cover the EgyptAir plane that's missing at all. But here's the introduction to Face the Nation. Like I said before, it's the only one that actually led with the missing EgyptAir plane, but they didn't emphasize it the way the Fox News Sunday introduction did, as I will discuss a little more after you watch that 54 seconds over here.
Today on Face the Nation, the mystery continues about what took an EgyptAir jet out of the sky. And Democrats brace for a messy fight at the finish line. Days after EgyptAir Flight 804 went down in the Mediterranean Sea, more clues emerge, but still no answer as to whether or not it was a terrorist act. We'll have the latest on the investigation, plus analysis from CBS News aviation and safety expert Sully Sullenberger. Then we'll turn to politics, as Bernie Sanders just won't let go, despite overwhelming odds against him. We'll ask the senator about fears he's hurting Hillary Clinton's chances against Donald Trump in the fall. We'll have new battleground tracker numbers about the state of that general election race in 2 key states, and political analysis. Plus, a personal word about our colleague, Morley Safer. It's all ahead.
So you can see what the top stories were on Face the Nation. There's actually sort of a mini bias comparison you can see between this and basically the way they're treating Bernie Sanders is also an issue you can notice in the introductions. They're talking about, is Bernie Sanders a hindrance to Hillary Clinton, which is also kind of what you're going to see in some of the subsequent clips. The next one I'm going to show, like I said, Face the Nation was the only one to lead with the missing airliner other than Fox News Sunday, which not only led with it, but I think is pretty clear, emphasized it a lot more than Face the Nation did on CBS, even though they led with it. And over on ABC, I think they put it pretty much at the end. They definitely lead with the politics, but they do mention the airliner, as I will discuss after you watch. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to do ABC. First, I'm going to do the CNN Jake Tapper introduction. That's the one where they put the airliner at the end. They do mention it, but they don't emphasize it or even put it at the beginning like CBS did, as I will discuss after you watch that here.
Bitter battle.
I will be the nominee for my party. That is already done.
Hillary Clinton says Bernie Sanders needs to face facts as the Democratic primary gets ugly.
So I say to the leadership of the Democratic Party, open the doors, let the people in.
Is Sanders willing to burn down the party to get what he wants? Senator Bernie Sanders will be here in minutes. Plus, Donald Trump tries to calm conservatives.
I will not let you down. Remember that. I will not let you down.
But there's a new anti-Trump ticket. Can it work? We'll ask one of the candidates. And inside job? New images of what remains of EgyptAir Flight 804. But what brought down the plane? The latest intel from American officials. Plus, the best political minds will be here with insights from the campaign trail.
So that's the introduction to CNN State of the Union, and you can see they did mention the EgyptAir plane that's missing, but they didn't emphasize it. They didn't put it at the beginning. It actually comes all the way at the end. And the next one I'm going to show, that's the ABC This Week with George Stephanopoulos introduction. And they also didn't put it at the beginning. They didn't emphasize it. And the one thing I like about the ABC introduction is they actually paired the terrorism threat from this airliner that may or may not have been terrorism with something that is probably a bigger threat than terrorism that you don't see talked about enough, I don't think. And I'm not going to show any more clips about it, but you can see what it is at the end of this ABC clip over here.
On This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Locked and loaded.
Crooked Hillary Clinton is the most anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment candidate.
It's now an all-out battle with both sides firing away.
Unlike Donald Trump, I will not pander to the gun lobby.
Our brand new poll reveals Trump's surprising strength and Clinton's potential for a big boost ahead. But is Bernie Sanders still standing in her way?
I don't want to see the American people voting for the lesser of two evils.
And fear factor. After that mysterious plane crash overseas, the TSA's tough job just got even tougher. Will fear of terror tangle U.S. airports? Plus, Zika threat, the sudden spike in cases here at home, and why it may get much worse. From ABC News, it's This Week.
So the Zika threat, that actually has the potential to harm more Americans than terrorism, I think. And so at least ABC paired the Zika threat with the possibly non-existent terrorism threat from this EgyptAir plane that's missing, because we don't know the cause of the crash, or there appears to be fire and smoke, like I said when I introduced these clips. And also when I showed the second clip about how both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have both come out saying it's most likely terrorism, that might be as the result of the intel briefings, but this next clip kind of makes that less likely, because this is the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam Schiff, saying that it looked that way near the beginning, but now it's looking less like that, especially because of the lack of groups taking credit. And this is the last clip number 28. I'll discuss it a little more and then wrap up the show after you watch it with me over here.
Active and wants to commit acts of terror. Are you convinced that this is the leading theory now?
I'm not convinced, and I think it started out certainly as our main suspicion, particularly in light of that Sharm el-Sheikh attack on the Russian airliner. But here we are, we've examined the overhead images, we've looked at the signals intelligence, we've looked at the manifests. We have not come up with any hard evidence of terrorism as of yet. And it seems very suspicious to me, George, that here we are 4 days later, no claim of responsibility. ISIS releases a video or audio tape, doesn't claim responsibility. If it was ISIS, and it's still very possible, I think it's more likely to have been a lone actor that wasn't operating with the command and control of Raqqa, taking matters into their own hands. But at this point, we really can't confirm either theory, and I think either is now equally plausible.
And I think...
So that's interesting, and I think that's an important piece of the puzzle to add to the other clips I showed. You can let me know what you think of the juxtaposition of those 4 different introductions from the 4 of the 5 programs this morning. Like I said, I didn't show Meet the Press because Meet the Press was the only one that didn't mention EgyptAir, and I wanted to juxtapose the different ways they treated it. I think Fox News definitely went off the deep end, hyping the terrorism aspect. It may certainly turn out to be terrorism, but I don't think the amount of evidence we currently have justifies what Fox News Sunday did there. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I appreciate I think I got about 120 live viewers. I've been reading your comments along the way. If you want to help support my channel, whether you're a live viewer or watching as a recorded show, there hopefully is like a little eye up here in the corner you can click on and give me a direct donation through YouTube fan funding. That's semi-anonymous. I think I know your zip code, but that's all I know about who donated. I got one nice donation this last week through fan funding, and then of course down in the video description there's also a link to become one of my patrons. I'm hoping by the time the election rolls around that I can get the monthly patron pledges up to $600 a month. That's $150 a week, since it takes me about 10 or 12 hours to put this show together every Sunday. I think if we are really fighting for a $15 minimum wage, I should probably get like at least $15 an hour for the time I put in every Sunday. And so I'm hoping I will gather up enough patrons to make that happen by the time the election really comes through full swing. You can let me know what you think about the clips I picked out, whether you thought they were informative and educational like I promised at the beginning, and hopefully I'll have a chance to make at least one edited, produced video during the week coming up, like I did this last week. The week before, I think I made like 3 videos that week, but there are all sorts of upcoming events in the news that hopefully I'll be able to cover, and whether I have a chance to make edited, produced videos this week, I will definitely... Oh, there is one I'm working on now that hopefully will be done in the next couple days, but I don't know. I think maybe I'll announce that on Facebook sometime in the next 24 hours, maybe. That's facebook.com/LiberalViewer. And until I put up that video, or until I come back next Sunday for my Sunday live clip roundup, I'll just thank you for joining me, and I'll be seeing you all around the internet.